Hello and good evening to all, and a warm welcome. Thank you for taking out the time to attend this webinar. Our topic for today is, are you at risk of COVID-19 infection due to lifestyle diseases and poor immunity? I am Dr. Mansi Dugar, your host for the evening. On behalf of SMMS Trust, Thane, who is actively looking after COVID patients and trying their best to educate community regarding various aspects of COVID-19, there are certain questions from patients which we have compiled and would like to discuss them here. We will take these questions from the audience at the end of the session. Please keep yourself on mute, and in case you wish to ask a question, please raise your digital hand or put it in the question answer box. Our speaker for today is Dr. Paula Goel from Faith Clinic, Mumbai. Dr. Paula Goel is a consultant pediatrician and adolescent specialist with training in postgraduate program in diabetology from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, USA. Dr. Paula specializes in lifestyle diseases in adolescent, that is teenage youth population, with special interest in adolescent and childhood obesity and its complications. Dr. Paula and Dr. Saurabh Goel are founders of Faith Clinic, Mumbai. She also is a joint treasurer of Non-Communicable Disease Chapter of Indian Academy of Pediatrics and a member of Indian Society of Lifestyle Medicine. She is a core committee member of IAP Task Force on Obesity and Lifestyle Diseases in Adolescent and Children. She has authored chapters in textbooks, pediatrics, and has many publications. She has been awarded certificates of appreciation from CM Maharashtra, Mr. Manohar Joshi, for community health, from Rotary, IAP, and IMA. Good evening, ma'am, and on behalf of SMMS Charitable Trust, I welcome you here. We have all gathered here today to discuss certain queries raised by our patients, and we would like you to answer them. Shall we start, ma'am?
Good evening, Dr. Mansi, and thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank SMM Trust, Charitable Trust Thane, for giving me this opportunity, and I thank all our viewers for taking out their time to attend this webinar. I'm sure we'll have an interesting discussion. So let's start.
Well, ma'am, with this COVID here, could you tell us, what are the risk factors for COVID-19 infection?
COVID has been there since February 2020. Now, initially, we had thought it would disappear. However, we are still fighting COVID. So obviously, there are certain risk factors which makes people more susceptible to infections. Now, the commonest risk factors are age and certain diseases. Senior citizens are more at risk. However, COVID nowadays occurs in children as well. Certain diseases like cancer, chronic kidney disease, diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, so like asthma, interstitial lung disease, COPD, then also HIV, liver disease, obesity, then Down syndrome, stroke, and those who smoke a lot are at high risk of the COVID infections.
Ma'am, we have a patient who says he is diabetic. Does he have a higher chance of catching COVID and developing complications?
Mansi, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. So, patients with diabetes are always at a risk of infection and complications, and that is true for COVID as well. And this occurs irrespective of age. There is increased inflammation and swelling, which leads to complications. Now, both type 1 and type 2 diabetics are affected. Now, in many diabetics, now the blood supply to the hands and legs are affected, and also there is nerve involvement. This may lead to injuries which heal slowly, and this can lead to bacterial as well as fungal infections. Now, since steroids are given in the COVID infection, if they're admitted in the hospital, there is a flaring up of the diabetes. And if the patient is in a pre-diabetic, and if the patient is already diabetes, the level of sugar rises a lot. And so they have to be put on insulin. So the chances of cytokine storm is also higher in these patients. Now, due to decreased immunity, there is a chance of mucormycosis or black fungus, as you have already heard, is quite common. So for such patients, if they are at home, it is necessary to monitor their blood sugar levels. And if they are working in the office, and then they must monitor the blood sugar level. And if they're going to work in the office, they must wear an N95 mask as well as have a face shield as well.
Ma'am, since you mentioned about mucormycosis, could you tell us a little more about it?
Yes, definitely. Mucormycosis is caused by a fungus which is called as a mucormycositis. Now, this is found in the environment, and if infected, it spreads very rapidly. It is called as black fungus because it causes black discoloration. I would like to show some pictures here now of mucormycosis. Now, it can spread to the brain and the sinuses. So you may get, if it spreads to the sinuses, you can get facial swelling on one side. Then there could be headache, nasal or sinus congestion, fever. There can be a black lesion which appears on the nose, if you can see as in the picture, as well as in the upper side of the mouth, and this can become very severe. Now, if it spreads to the lung, it causes pulmonary mucormycosis. So they present with fever, cough, chest pain, and shortness of breath. If it spreads to the skin, so you can get what is called as a cutaneous mucormycosis. So they appear as small blisters or ulcers, and the infected area can become black. The other signs and symptoms would be like it will become warm and there'll be pain to touch, redness, and swelling around the site. Now, if it spreads to the abdominal cavity, like the gastrointestinal area, it will cause abdominal pain, nausea and vomiting, and also intestinal bleeding. Mucormycosis can spread throughout the body and cause disseminated mucormycosis. And if it spreads to the brain, it is very dangerous and the person can land up in coma. So Rajasthan has declared mucormycosis or black fungus as an epidemic. And even actually today, the center has also announced that all the state governments are also meant to consider mucormycosis as an epidemic as well, along with the COVID.
Well, ma'am, there is a patient who says he gets breathless. Does he have COVID?
So in today's time, everybody thinks they have COVID, but breathlessness can occur because of multiple reasons. The commonest cause of breathlessness is basically because of respiratory problems. You could be getting asthma, chronic obstructive lung diseases, pulmonary disease, pneumonia, interstitial lung disease, where there is a damage to the lung tissue, and even chokage or blockage to the airways. Tuberculosis can cause. Then heart problems would cause breathlessness, like heart failure, where there is water collection which occurs in the lungs, and dilated weak heart, as in cardiomyopathy. Anxiety and stress, that causes breathlessness. Severe allergic reactions to something. Anemia. So normally people have a hemoglobin of, let's say, about 12 to 13. But if they're having a hemoglobin of, say, 6 or 7, they can become breathless when they are moving around. People who have terminal illnesses like cancer, very obese patients, and of course, COVID. So all cases of breathlessness are not because of COVID. So it is better that the person gets himself investigated for other symptoms as well as for COVID, and then he can find out what exactly is he suffering from.
Ma'am, how can one increase immunity power to fight this infection?
So immunity, as in layman's term, we call them Pratikar Shakti. It is nothing but the basic power of the body to fight the infection. And it's not very difficult to increase one's immunity, but we lead a life which is very difficult life nowadays, or I think we've been leading for it for quite a long time. So the idea is to get enough sleep. So a sleep of 7 to 8 hours is essential, because when you sleep, that's when your body is resting. And if you eat more plant foods, if you eat a lot of good fiber in your diet, good proteins, healthy fats, take a probiotic, limit your intake of sugar, and do some amount of physical activity, which is not much, maybe about 25 to 30 minutes of moderate physical activity per day is also good enough. Stay hydrated, take about 3 to 4 liters of water, and manage your stress well. Supplement wisely. It has been shown that vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and garlic are known to increase immunity. And even vaccination against diseases like pneumococcal and influenza will help to increase immunity. Now, pneumococcal infection and influenza infection, they have similar manifestations to COVID. So if you get vaccinated for these diseases, they will also increase your immunity. And of course, the COVID vaccination that everybody has to take. So a good sleep will improve your decision-making power, improved memory, the ability to manage your stress well. There would be a better immune system, and there would be physically good health, increased in the energy level, and sharper concentration. And generally, we say that the food which you eat should have about 3 to 5 servings of vegetables. And your plate has to be very colorful. The more colorful your plate is, the higher is your immunity.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, one patient has asked that his father has undergone angioplasty and his age is 55 years. So, is he at risk of getting COVID-19 infection? And what precautions should he take?
So, any flu illness, including COVID, now they will affect the heart in 3 different ways, causing myocarditis. So, there is inflammation of the heart muscles. Now, the clots are formed by the COVID infection in the bloodstream, and they can cause sudden heart attacks. The irregular heartbeat can cause sudden heart death, sudden cardiac death. So, the patients who have the known heart disease must be extremely careful, and they must take their medicines regularly. Now, as to what precautions they should take, one is the basic preventive measures must be followed, which means social distancing, hand washing, use of masks to prevent infection. They must continue their medications for whatever cardiac diseases they are on medications. And even when they should continue the medications, even when they are going for their planned COVID vaccination. It is only suppose if they are on blood thinners, they may stop the blood thinner for a particular day, for one day, but they have to continue the rest of the medicines. They must have a heart-healthy diet and avoid smoking and alcohol. A regular physical activity of moderate intensity must be undertaken, but they must ask their cardiologist and do it under the advice of their cardiologist. And heart patients must consult their cardiologist and should never ever self-medicate themselves. I'm repeating, never ever self-medicate. Many patients tend to self-medicate, and that's really dangerous.
Well, ma'am, could you tell us about what are lifestyle diseases and how are they caused?
Lifestyle diseases are basically non-communicable diseases which are caused by the unhealthy ways of living. So they are not detected early and are regarded as silent killers. The most common ones which we have are high BP, abnormal lipids, heart disease, diabetes, obesity. Obesity is also considered a disease. Are you aware of that, Dr. Mansi? In 1958, obesity was classified as a disease. However, it's not taken as a disease in our country. PCOS, respiratory problems, cancer, they are all lifestyle diseases brought on by unhealthy ways of living. Now, according to I'll give a little bit of statistics over here. According to the 70th annual conference of the CSI, that is the Cardiological Society of India, 1 in 5 young adults have high BP, which approximately translates to about 80 million people. And over 61% of all the deaths in India are attributed to your non-communicable diseases. Every 12th Indian is a diabetic. So India, as you know, is the second largest diabetic capital of the world. And more than 2.7 million people in India die of heart disease every year. And 52% of them are less than 70 years of age, in the age group from 39 to 69 years of age, exactly. So Mumbai has a high risk of, there's a high risk of heart attack amongst Mumbaikars because the data which is really disturbing, 48% is about obese, 51% have high cholesterol, 43% take high fat diet, 64% are sedentary and 11% smoke. So that's really alarming. And do you think this lifestyle diseases or communicable diseases occurs in only adults and senior citizens?
Oh,
The answer is a big no. You know, children, teenagers, and youth are also affected. In fact, the diagnosis is missed in this age group because you don't expect it at this age group, but this forms the base of all your adult lifestyle diseases, which you see in the late 20s and early 30s. So basically, the process of the lifestyle diseases, they start much earlier, in the teenagers and the early youth group. But since they are asymptomatic, they are not detected. And that is why we call them the silent killers. In urban India, so we have the young and the middle-aged people who are at high risk. And if you go to the rural population, it is the middle-aged and the senior people who are at high risk. So basically, as we know, this is because of the faulty way of living. So what are the faulty ways? One is the diet, eating basically high caloric food. As Indians, our food is basically high caloric. So food may contain a large amount of saturated fat, red meat, high carbs, bakery items which contains your trans fat, which is very dangerous. Then lack of physical activity. And in the COVID period, so that has become, that has gone through the roof because everybody is at home. Too much of time on the media. So you could be on your phone, your gadget, or whatever media. So this causes lack of sleep. I know people who don't sleep or who sleep very late in the night, maybe at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Then stress, this causes a lot of stress. FOMO, that is a fear of missing out when they're cut off from the social media. Then smoking, alcohol intake, recreational drugs, late night parties, well, that is not so common now. I don't know. In the COVID period, it may be a bit difficult. And stress and anxiety. So I will share a picture over here now. So all these diseases and all these things, they finally cause a lot of inflammation and swelling in the tissues. And this causes the damage to the organs, namely your heart, lungs, pancreas, brain, kidneys, muscles, blood clotting mechanisms, nerves. So you see, everything is affected. But lifestyle diseases are very much reversible, provided that they are detected early in the course of the disease and we bring about changes in our way of living by adopting a healthier lifestyle. So if you look at this picture of the tree, you will find at the lower part, below the line, is all the causes, like having the processed food, stress, lack of sleep, lack of socialization, inactivity, unhealthy diet. And what are the manifestations of it, like your heart disease, hypertension, anxiety, diabetes, obesity, thyroid. But you see that even if the manifestations would also cause an unhealthy living, and an unhealthy living would also cause manifestations. Now, if you look at the NCD diseases and the NCD, the maximum number is of the cardiovascular diseases, which is approximately, I think, 70 million. Diabetes is about 62.4 million. Respiratory is 30 million. Stroke is about 1.5 million. And cancer is about 0.95 million. And as I said before, it is not just the adults. It is also the children who have got badly affected.
okay. Since you've mentioned about obesity, ma'am, what are the problems faced by obese individuals or overweight people if they get COVID? Like, what kind of problems do they face?
Mansi, there was a review which was carried out, 2020 obesity reviews. They carried an article in which an international team of researchers, they carried out, they had the pooled data from 399,000 patients. And they found that people with obesity who got COVID had a 1.5 times higher incidence of landing up in the hospital than healthier people. Okay, then healthier people means people with healthy weight. And 74% of them were admitted to the ICU and 48%, were most likely to die. So obese people, as we know, they have a higher incidence of heart disease, lung disease, and diabetes. So what happens, the fat in the abdomen. So there is a muscle which is called as a diaphragm, which separates your abdominal cavity and the chest cavity. So if there is excess of fat in the abdomen, so this fat, it presses on the diaphragm and the lungs also get squeezed. So when the lungs get squeezed, it restricts the airflow in the lungs and the airways collapse. So the airflow to the lungs decreases. The blood also becomes very sticky and there is an increased tendency to form the clots. Now, these clots can cause heart attacks, brain stroke, and other very life-threatening conditions. Now, obese people or obese individual, they suffer from chronic low-grade inflammation, which causes the swelling inside the tissues and the organs of the body. And the fat cells, they infiltrate the organs where the immune cells are being formed. So those immune cells cannot get formed, and that interferes with the production of the antibody. So the immunity decreases, and they get various different infections, including COVID they can get. So with low immunity and squeezing of the lungs, there is an increased incidence of breathlessness, infections, diabetes, high BP, irregular heartbeats, collection of water around the lungs, sudden cardiac arrests leading to death, liver problems, kidney problems, mucormycosis, another major problem because of decreased immunity, and increased incidence of cytokine storm. So they have a lot of problems if they get COVID.
Yeah, and another patient has asked that he had COVID a month back, but he still feels tired and drained out. Why is that so, ma'am?
So, there is something which is called as the post-COVID stage or the long COVID symptoms. So in which case the symptoms may last for weeks after the infections. So the person may feel tired or fatigued. They have difficulty in thinking or concentrating. So that is typically called as a brain fog. There is headache, loss of smell or taste. They feel very dizzy on standing up. So they may complain of fast beating or pounding heart. So they will typically come and tell you कि छाती में धड़-धड़ होता है, palpitations. Some of them will say that छाती दुखता है and दम लगता है. They can have cough. There is also joint pain and muscle pain. And fever can come up. Now the fever is not so much because of the infection, but because of the inflammation which has occurred in all the organs of the body. And along with this, there can be depression as well as anxiety. So there is also another entity which is called as the multi-system inflammatory syndrome, which is called as the MIS. Now this affects the children and the teenagers, but now it is seen in the adults as well, in which different organs of the body become inflamed, including the heart, lungs, kidneys, brains, gastrointestinal organs. So they may complain of, abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, neck pain, rash, bloodshot eyes, and feeling extra tired. So our patient over here could be suffering from the post-COVID syndrome, the long COVID syndrome, or he could be having MIS. So it could be one of these things. He needs to be counseled, So you'll have to tell the doctors over there to speak to
Right. Ma'am, these days now with the lockdown and COVID here, we have everyone working from home. So we have a person asking that she has put on more weight on her abdomen, but she is not really overweight. Does she need to check for lifestyle diseases?
Yeah, I will share one video over you to understand this. So, as you know, working from home is a very stressful condition. More so because the work and the home boundaries are sort of lost. Like you don't know when you're working and when you are doing your homework, housework, and most of the time you'll end up working rather than relaxing or doing anything else. So interpersonal relations also become very stressful and affected. Lack of sleep and stress. Eating a lot of processed food. So all of these factors lead to fat storage, especially around the abdomen. So these individuals may not really be very fat. So they could be having something as like the chicken hands and legs, but the abdomen can be really big. Also stress, releases cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and this also causes the excess fat storage along the abdomen. And stress also decreases immunity. So with high cortisol, the body starts craving for sugar. And these people start eating sugar or a lot of sweet things. And this would also cause increase in weight. So abdominal girth of more than 90 centimeters in male and 80 centimeters in female, they predispose to lifestyle diseases like diabetes or pre-diabetes, high lipids or heart problem. So it is necessary to check up for the lifestyle diseases. So she needs to check up because if the incidence of lifestyle diseases increases, then the immunity would decrease and they would be susceptible to multiple infections, including COVID. So even though she may not be really fat or overweight, rather, she still should get herself checked and basically take her abdominal girth. That is more important.
Well, ma'am, now schools and colleges too are closed these days, and children too put on weight. So, do the children do need to lose weight, and if so, then how much?
So for children and teenagers, it's a bit different. Weight gain in childhood and teenagers is very important because these are the growing years. And not only does the physical body grow, like the skeletal structure and the muscle mass, they grow, but it is also associated with the growth of the body organs, including the brain. So I would like to show a picture over here to you now. So in this age group, when we have the children and the teenagers, we take their height and weight. And this height and weight is matched with the standardized height and weight for that age and gender. So you will see two charts here. These are the IAP growth charts, the BMI growth charts, which are there. So you can check it with the IAP charts, the WHO charts, and the IOTF charts. And we can calculate the BMI. So the pink chart is for the girls and the blue chart is for the boys. Now, if the weight is more than 95th percentile of the normal, then it is considered to be obese. Now, this is according to the WHO charts. If it is more than 85th percentile of the normal for that particular age and gender. So when we say normal, it is with respect to that particular age and gender. So if it's a 10-year-old, we will see the age of the 10-year-old. As a 10-year-old, for girls, it's different, and for boys, it's different. So if it is more than 85th percentile, then it is overweight. Now for BMI, if it is more than 23, for that age and gender, it is overweight. And if it is more than 27, it is obese. So, and how much weight do they need to lose? Yes, they do need to lose weight, but about 5 to 7% of weight loss, if it occurs, that's quite good enough, because this would stimulate their cellular metabolism and they will lose weight more faster. But you need to put them into some sort of a routine or an activity and make it a sort of a fun activity. Children and teenagers don't really like to, be told what they want to do. And also, if they gain weight, since it's a growth phase, the BMI also stabilizes out, because as they grow in height, the weight gets distributed over the body. And even for children and teenagers, if you see, there are so many complications. They have heart problems, high blood pressure, pre-diabetes, diabetes. It predisposes to cancer. There is hypoventilation. So suddenly in the night when they're sleeping, they will take shallow breaths and their breathing may stop. Metabolic syndrome, wherein, again, they have the central obesity with high BP and pre-diabetes. They may predispose to osteoarthritis, that is bones and joint. So obesity is a global pandemic, and that's a different another thing altogether. But yes, these people are also affected.
Well, ma'am, can you focus on the difference between the first and the second waves of COVID?
Yeah. So the first wave, like when it had come at that time, like we were sort of thinking that, okay, now COVID is going to disappear. And we were very scared about a senior population because the older age group were more vulnerable. In the second wave also, the older, but the youth have also got affected. So if you see in the second wave, more than 70% of the people are less than 40 years of age, And there's a large number of people who are actually asymptomatic, vis-a-vis the first wave where more people were symptomatic. The children were not affected in the first wave, but in the second wave, the children are very much affected. You get children, 1 year, 2 year old also who are affected, and smaller ones, younger ones, infants are also affected. The ventilatory requirement was high in the first wave, and in the second wave, It's more of an oxygen requirement, not so much of a ventilatory requirement. But then because the numbers are so high, that's the reason, and the oxygen requirement is high. That's why we have such a bad situation in the hospitals.
Ma'am, we have a patient who's asked that we have a family of 5 members in the house and there are lots of fights. In order to deal with the house and the work office stress, the husband's smoking has increased. Of lately, he has also started taking alcohol 3 to 4 times a week. And the past 2 days, he's feeling uneasy and has chest pain. So, does he need to get his checkup done?
As we already said before, work from home is a very stressful situation. The boundaries between home life and work life is completely destroyed. And stress, as we know, releases a hormone which is called as cortisol. Cortisol increases blood pressure as well as heart rate. And this increases the load on the heart. Stress also leads to anxiety and depression. And in order to combat that, I think our patient has resorted to increasing his smoking and taking alcohol. But smoking and alcohol consumption are also associated with the narrowing of the blood vessels because of the plaque formation. And as a result, the blood supply to the heart is also decreased. So this may also lead to chest pain. So he should definitely get himself checked to rule out cardiac issues. What has happened in this period, because everybody is like, the stress of the COVID is so high, and most of the hospitals have become the COVID hospitals. So a lot of these patients who are having the lifestyle diseases, they are either trying to self-medicate or they just continue the medicines which have been given to them. And that is why we are seeing a lot of problems from this angle also.
So, ma'am, like with these self-medications and all, do you think there are complications of COVID coming up? And could you just tell us about what could be the complications of COVID?
Yes. So I would like to show a picture here. So if you realize, COVID actually affects all organs and systems of the body. So let us take the heart, for example. In the heart, you get irregular heartbeat, heart attack, heart failure, sudden death. And sudden death can occur in young individuals as well. 20 years, 22 years can also have sudden death because of arrhythmias, that is irregular heartbeat. In the lungs, there is respiratory failure, pneumonia, respiratory distress, and portion of the lungs are destroyed, especially if they get COVID. That's when the lung fibrosis occurs. That means the part of the lung gets scarred. So there is no oxygenation which takes place there. In the nervous system, you can get brain stroke, joints, there is difficulty in movement, liver damage, kidney damage. There could be secondary infections with the staphylococcus and the streptococcal infection, and that can lead to septic shock. Mentally, people are depressed and anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety. Again, that causes the release of cortisol and the entire cycle starts again. The body's blood clotting mechanism is also affected, and the abnormal clots form, which leads to internal bleeding, and they may cause organ failure. And the patient can develop blood clots in the legs, like the deep vein thrombosis, as we call it, the DVT, or in the lungs, that is a pulmonary embolism, and it can have catastrophic complications. And as we discussed before, the multisystem inflammatory syndrome, the MIS, where there is inflammation and swelling of all body organs, that can also come up. Then the long COVID, this thing of chronic fatigue, brain fog, trouble thinking and dizziness. So actually, effectively, it covers all parts and all organs of the body.
Well, then, how does lifestyle disease affect the severity of these COVID complications?
There were 3 cross-sectional studies which were carried out in Europe and Asia, and they tried to find out the relation between physical activity, healthy lifestyle, and COVID-19 disease severity. And they found that people who had obesity with heart disease or diabetes, they are the main risk factor for COVID-19 complications, especially for heart attack, stroke, pulmonary embolism, kidney damage, pneumonia. The stickiness of the blood increases, and this leads to the formation of clots. And this can lead to heart attacks and strokes. And there is decreased immunity, which will also cause infections and sepsis. So patients with the pre-existing, high blood pressure, diabetes or heart disease, cancer, HIV, asthma, they have a higher incidence of cytokine storm and sepsis. Also, like the lifestyle disease, people who have lifestyle disease and they have unhealthy diet, that could also cause tissue inflammation and swelling and would decrease immunity. So it has been found, they've found that if the individual, they undergo moderate intensity exercise, it will improve the immune function and reduce the influx of the cells into the lungs and decrease the load and improve the disease outcome.
Ma'am, when should a person like having COVID get hospitalized?
Any patient who is breathless, like having a respiratory rate of more than 35 breaths per minute, or having a oxygen saturation, you need to see your oxygen saturation with the pulse oximeter. And if that is less than 94% in the room air, then they should get admitted. Or if the attending doctor feels that there is a risk of complications. So if there is a senior citizen like who's above 65 years or older, and they're having heart problem or diabetes or asthma, moderate to severe asthma, uncontrolled diabetes, obesity, kidney disease, HIV patients, pregnant women, people who have got thalassemia, sickle cell, or patients with stroke. So such patients, they must get admitted, they have to get hospitalized.
But if the patient is home quarantined and has lifestyle diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, asthma, what are the precautions that they should take?
So one is that they should check their temperature and oxygen saturation at least 3 to 4 times a day. The temperature must be normal and the oxygen saturation must be maintained above 94. If they are diabetic, they have to check their blood sugar levels, and that should be maintained, and it should not show sudden drops or increase. If they are having high blood pressure, again, the blood pressure should be maintained, and any rise of blood pressure, or if they are feeling very uneasy with, like they are having disorientation, giddiness, severe headaches, or there is fainting attacks, difficulty in breathing, this bluish discoloration which comes around the lips, or there's a feeling of tightness in the chest, or there is a swelling over the body, then they need to be admitted, or at least they should call up their doctor. And they have to continue the medications for lifestyle disease. Many times what we have seen is when the patients of these patients, when they are diagnosed with COVID and some treatment is started on them, I don't know, for some reason they take the COVID treatment and they stop their other medications. They should not do that. They should continue both the medications, They should continue the medications for their diabetes and blood sugar or whatever, BP, as well as the medications which they have been advised for COVID.
Well, we have heard about Faith Healthy Heart program. I think a lot of people have benefited from it. So could you just brief us about that?
Faith Healthy Heart program is an online 3-month program with a cardiologist, health coach, nutritionist, exercise therapist, yoga instructor to holistically improve your health, improve your immunity, and decrease complications and medications. Our aim was to basically create awareness about the lifestyle diseases, and those with a family history of the heart attack and those who have high BP and abnormal lipids, heart disease or diabetes, or those who are overweight can join the program. And this program will definitely reduce your symptoms, reduce the risk of future heart problems, relieve anxiety, and manage stress. And I think over 3 years, we have had more than 2,700 patients, and they have benefited a lot from this program.
Ma'am, there are some who are asking questions to the panelists. I would request them to put their questions on the question answer chat box, please. Well, coming to the next question, ma'am. Can you tell us a little bit on the role of COVID markers, RT-PCR and CT scan? Like when should it be done and what are their cutoff values? The COVID markers, RT-PCR and CT scan.
So COVID markers include your CBC, CRP, D-dimer, LDH, ferritin. These are all blood tests. So any of these markers warrant a checkup. If any family member has got COVID, it is best to get a RT-PCR done. However, if a RT-PCR test is negative and the person is symptomatic, then it is best to get the markers done. Now, markers and RT-PCR tests should be done specifically after the 5th day, preferably, because they can come false negative if done in the early part of the disease, because the viral load is low in that part of in that stage. And for the RT-PCR, the cutoff level, the CT value of RT-PCR should be equal to or less than 35. So any level which is below 35 is positive, and above or equal to 35 or more is considered negative. So the lower the value, the higher is the severe is the infection. So if you have a CT value in RT-PCR of say, let's say 25, 26, 23. So that means it's more severe. Okay. And HRCT should be done on the 6th or the 7th day of the infection or after contact, and a CORAD-4. So in that you see two things, a CORAD and the COVID involvement of the lungs. So the CORAD staging, if it is at a level of 4, that is what I think people should, you don't get into too many things, but just understand, if it is CORAD-4, that means it is suspicious for COVID. And CORAD-5 and above is COVID. Okay. And the extent of the lung involvement is determined by the CT score value. Okay. Now, a score value of 10 and with an oxygen saturation of less than 94% should warrant an admission. So that means that much part of the lung has been affected in the CT scan because your oxygen saturation has come down. So it warrants an admission. However, if your CT score is more than 15, and even though your oxygen saturation, some people would still be maintaining their oxygen level. If it is above 94, still they need to get admitted because suddenly the oxygen saturation may dip. So anything more than 15, they have to get admitted.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Well, there are certain medicines which are being used by people without proper prescriptions, like ivermectin, doxy, azi, steroids. Like, how safe are these medicines? And is it, that a person can self-medicate themselves when they are at home quarantine?
So this is very true what you are saying. Doxy and azi basically have got no benefit in COVID-19. They are used for bacterial infections. However, if your doctor feels that there is a secondary bacterial infection along with the COVID, then it makes sense to use the either doxy or azi, but using both doxy and azi at the same time has got actually no meaning at all. Then ivermectin has got some potential, but they have to be used only under certain criteria and not to be used as a regular line of treatment for all patients. Steroids, again, can be used only after HRCT is done or if the markers are high, and that too, I repeat, that too, in the second week of infection. Now, if the steroids are started early, in the first week of infection, now steroids will decrease your immunity. So in the first week, that's when your viral replication, the virus is multiplying. And if your immunity comes down, your viral replication or your viral load is going to increase. And the COVID is going to spread very rapidly like this. More so, understand, with decreased immunity and long-standing steroids, the other problem which comes up is mucormycosis or the black fungus. Now that then becomes a very deadly situation. Then Blood thinners. Blood thinners can be used only after the markers are high, but again, all patients don't require blood thinners. Remdesivir, ivermectin, steroid, blood thinners, they are best administered when the patient is in the hospital and under medical supervision because they have their own problems and side effects as well. If the patient is at home, so if a patient has to be started on any of these, it is best to admit the patient where they will be monitored. However, let me tell you one thing. WHO does not recommend remdesivir. And now ICMR also is not recommending remdesivir. So remdesivir was basically started for the emergency purpose. And somewhere along the line, because there were no other drugs which were working or we did not have good antiviral agents, so this became the drug of choice, So there are other drugs also which are being tried and tested on. One is your nitaxonide and niclosamide, and they are under the trials as of now. So none of these drugs should be administered in the home quarantine patients. And of course, patients cannot self-medicate. No patient should self-medicate or, on medicate because their friends have told them, their neighbors have told them, that you take this medicine and this is good. Or my doctor had started on this. That is completely a no-no. And, there are so many problems which comes up because of this.
So in short, self-medication should not be done. It is dangerous.
It is dangerous.
Well, ma'am, the last question. Could you brief us a little bit on the COVID vaccine front, like whether other vaccines are useful? Because here we have just a few of them. So could you just tell us more on it?
Yeah. So there are different COVID vaccines which are available. You have the Covishield, Covaxin, and now Sputnik has also got registered. So 2 doses are required at a gap of 6 to 8 weeks. However, the dosage schedule keeps on changing depending as per the government instructions. The second dose of COVID, the latest is to be given after 12 weeks. A COVID positive patient can take the vaccines 3 months after recovery from COVID. COVID vaccines can be given to people above 18 years of age. Breastfeeding women can get vaccinated. However, pregnant women should not get vaccinated, and pediatrics and children below 18 years should not get vaccinated. Pediatric vaccines are under trial as of now. Pneumococcal and influenza vaccines can also be taken to protect against the influenza and pneumococcal infections because they have similar presentations to the COVID-19 infection, and they would protect against not against COVID, but against influenza and pneumococcal, and they would help to build up your immunity. But the vaccines cannot be given concurrently with the COVID vaccine. So if you are taking a COVID, there has to be a minimum gap of 15 days interval between COVID vaccine and any other vaccine. So you could take your influenza and pneumococcal vaccine together, but if you have to take a COVID vaccine, there has to be a 15-day gap between your influenza pneumococcal and the COVID vaccine. Or if you have taken COVID vaccine, wait for 15 days and take any other vaccine.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for it. And doctor, any key message to our audience?
Yes. So just a few words I would like to say. During this COVID pandemic, it is necessary to first keep a positive frame of mind. Don't think of the worst possibilities in life. You maintain the basic precautions like maintaining a 6 feet distance, hand washing, sanitizing, wearing mask, avoid crowded places, use lifts sparingly. If the lift is crowded, don't use that lift, get into the next lift. Be careful while socializing. Maintain a healthy lifestyle in the form of, colorful diet, as I said before, high fiber, high protein diet, cut out on carbs, cut out sugar, cut out fats and trans fats. Do moderate exercise of 25 to 30 minutes. That's good enough. Don't self-medicate. Take medicines as per your doctor's advice, not Google advice, and not certainly your friends and neighbors' advice. Decrease vices, if any, that is smoking, alcohol, recreational drugs. Watch media in moderation. And please don't get consumed by the COVID news. Don't let COVID news consume as if your entire life depends on it. It's terrible. It creates havoc in your brain and stresses you out. Get vaccination for COVID and other vaccines to improve your immunity. And most important is calm your mind. You could develop a hobby. You could do some meditation, breathing exercises, follow some ways like radical consciousness, art of living, Silva's mind control method, anything else that helps you to calm down. However, these, whatever are there, has to be used in conjunction with medicine. Don't say that, okay, I will follow this and not take my medications if they have to be taken. And last and not the least, everything good or bad in life just passes off. And I think this too shall pass. We just have to be patient and maintain our basic, care and precautions. So thank you so much. I hope it was useful to all of you. And if there are any questions, I think I will take them.
Well, this we come to the end of our discussion, ma'am. And I hope the audience has found it useful. Of course, I did. And if there are any questions, we'll just check and go ahead with them, ma'am. Shall we?
Yeah. I think, Meena had asked a question.
Yes, Meena has asked a question. And it is like motion and spasm problems. I think she has some motion and spasm problems.
So why do you not unmute Meena and let her ask the question?
Yeah, sure. Ma'am, Meena Mehra, ma'am.
Hello, Meena ma'am, can you unmute yourself and speak?
She's there?
She's there, yes.
I'm there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me, Meena.
I just want to ask regarding after having in the hospital, I was fine. I had COVID. I came after some 10 days. I started my digestion has become poor, and I got a spasm, and I got a sprain at the in my diaphragm. So what solution would you like to tell me?
So were you? Did you have COVID at any point of time?
Yeah. I had 1.5 months back.
So probably this is one of your as I said, your long COVID syndrome, or it could also be your multi-inflammatory syndrome, wherein your intestines are affected. So there is inflammation in the intestine. So this will pass away. This will pass away. Give it some time, So that is when your intestines have got inflamed, because there's inflammation in the body because of the COVID. So that will settle down in about, give it a month's time. So generally to come out of this in the post-COVID stage, you could say about 2 months is required, by the time you start getting back to normal. So don't worry, it will come back to normal.
Okay, fine. Perfect. Thank you so much.
But however, I would also tell you is try to have a simple bland diet, because when the intestines are affected, it is very difficult to digest food. So try to have soft, bland diet and keep a lookout whether you are passing black stools, because intestinal bleeding can also occur. And intestinal bleeding, you will see in the form of black stools. So if you get black stools, you need to consult your doctor. Okay, black. Okay.
Right. I just want in the night, I just have made up of this mind to have only yellow dal and rice. Only this much is fine.
Yeah, you can have yellow dal and rice, but that's purely again carbohydrate. Have some vegetables with it. You can take fruits. They will improve your immunity.
What should I take?
Fruits.
Fruits I take in the evening and morning. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's okay.
But I can't have heavy anything. I can't have mangoes and all I am just having
mangoes again is high calorie. You can take so many fruits are there: apples, pears, watermelon, muskmelon. So many types of fruits are there. So and if you are not a diabetic, you can take bananas also. If you're a diabetic, then you need to stay away from bananas.
Okay. No, I'm not diabetic.
Well, ma'am, we have another question from Veronica. Like, can you be affected by black fungus without being affected by COVID or without taking steroids?
Yes, it is possible because black fungus is there in the environment, and if the individual's immunity is low, they can get infected certain diseases, but they must have certain predisposing conditions. So, if they are like taking medications, if they have got certain major diseases, life-threatening diseases, where they are on certain medications, like cancer medications, HIV, where the immunity is completely bashed, in those conditions, or certain autoimmune diseases where your immunity is again affected. So mucormycosis does come up in those conditions. It does. Now we are seeing a spat of it because everybody who were on steroids and whose immunity had got knocked down. So for them, it has come up in big way. Earlier, we were not seeing so many cases of mucormycosis. That's been there for always. Don't worry, Veronica.
Well, Veronica, ma'am, you need to ask something. Fine. Another lady, Renu Shome.
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, are you there?
Why do you not let her speak?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm asking her. Is she there? Then she can unmute and ask her question. Renu, ma'am?
Yeah, hi. Hi, it was indeed a very, I would say, educative session. I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to just check, suppose if any COVID person, if he takes a vaccination before 3 months, what would be the implication? Like how risky it is? That's all.
There are many changes. So earlier on, it was 6 weeks. Okay. So now the 3 months has come up now. So earlier, if you have guidelines were like 3 weeks. So let me tell you, when I had got vaccinated for COVID, so we are the healthcare workers. At that time, we had got vaccinated in January and February. So Covishield was given at 4 weeks interval. And I had wanted to take it at a gap of 6 weeks, but I was told to go from ward office and take it in 4 weeks. So that's it. Then the thing changed to 6 weeks. So now it's 12 weeks. So earlier, if somebody had COVID, there was a letter also which was given from the municipal corporation office. I still have a copy of that letter in which they had mentioned that 6 weeks post-COVID, it is safe to take the vaccine. But now this is the latest guideline which they have come up and said that it has to be after 3 months. So don't worry, if somebody has taken it, well, nothing can be done. So just, you cannot do anything.
Thanks.
Any other question, Renu?
Yes, ma'am. There are lots of them.
No, 1 second. I'm asking Ms. Shom if she has any other question.
Okay.
No, that's fine. It's
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we have another person, Mr. Anupam. Mr. Anupam, can you unmute and ask your question? Anupam Vanveria.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please put on your question.
Okay, very good. Doctor, I have 2 questions. My first question is, if somebody has a very mild infection of COVID and for whatever reason he's admitted to the hospital, now in a COVID ward, because there is a very high concentration of the COVID virus in a COVID ward, is there a likelihood that a mild infection can get worse because of the COVID virus load?
No, but why? But did that patient have other complications or other risk factors for admission? Were there others? And why do you say it was mild COVID? On what basis do you say it is mild COVID?
Okay, the CT number was 34. Right.
Okay, for 34, that is your RT-PCR was 34.
Yeah, RT-PCR was 34 and the CT scan was 5.
Okay. All right. But was patient symptomatic?
Yeah, mild symptoms like mild fever.
No. By what I mean is symptomatic. By that I mean, was the oxygen saturation less than 94?
Well, let's say till the patient was at home, the saturation levels, the lowest it came to was about 93.
Okay.
And
Okay.
post admission to the hospital dropped to 88 and even lower later.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So my question is simple. Does the virus load in a virus ward, can it aggravate the infection?
It depends on what stage it is. If it is in the early stages, yes, it can increase.
So maybe in some cases, depending on the doctor's recommendation, it may be better to let the patient stay at home than go to a hospital.
Yeah, but as I said, no, it depends. The admission criteria are whether there are any risk factors, what is the oxygen saturation. But here the oxygen saturation was low. So if you could arrange for oxygen also, and you could have an oxygen concentrator at home and monitor the levels, that can also work. Or
Okay, fair enough. No, that's a good answer, doctor. I don't want to take up too much of your time. A quick second one is we spoke a little bit about diabetes.
yeah,
So let's say if the HbA1c reading is, let's say, 5.2,
okay.
fasting blood sugar is anywhere between, let's say, 140 to 180. Is that a cause for concern?
So if your fasting is between 140 to 180, so I think you should get your HbA1c level checked again, because a 5.2 is a very tight control. If it is such a tight control, then your fasting sugar will not be 140 to 180. So there is a mismatch over here.
Yeah, but let me share with you this mismatch has been going on for maybe 3 or 4 years. I've got consistently HbA1c readings from 5.1 to 5.3.
So how
Okay,
old are you, sir?
I am now 59 years old.
Pardon?
59.
59. So a 5 point, typically if you are a diabetic, such a tight control is sort of a bit difficult, and generally it doesn't occur. And if this tight control occurs, then your sugar levels would be lower, because it's your average sugar, 3 months sugar. If
Yeah,
your
I'm
average
aware of that.
sugar,
So what happens is I typically go for one annual complete checkup, and I do my HbA1c. I try to do it every 3 months or every 4 months. So my HbA1c has always been tightly controlled, like I told you, between 5.1 to 5.3. And then my fasting sugar, the lowest fasting sugar reading that I've got at home is, let's say, 125. And at times it touches
145 or 135.
125.
145, man.
Okay, that's not
No,
too bad.
no. But that's the lowest I've got. And typically it's quite normal for me to get, above 140, above 160. And postprandial mostly is in the region of about 160, and occasionally it's touched 200 as well.
Okay.
But HbA1c is beautiful every time I do it.
Okay. So what is your question? Is there any cause for concern? So as
Is
long as
there any?
parameters are maintained, well, that's good. But you need to maintain your parameters and be careful.
So
You need to be careful.
basically, see, HbA1c is fine, but fasting and postprandial are both look to be out of control.
Yeah, I would say that.
So
It's a
would
bit
you
of
say
a
that?
mismatch. Maybe you can connect with me at a later point of time. I will explain the things to you.
All right, doctor. Fine.
Okay?
I'll find. How do I connect with you? Is there some
They
way
can
to do
share you
that?
my number. That's okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much,
Well,
doctor.
Mr. Anupam, we will share the number with you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we have Rohini Doke, who's asking, husband has got COVID 2 months ago, and he has already taken cholesterol treatment by the cardiologist, Dr. Saurabh Goel, sir. And now currently he feels tightness in the chest. What to do?
No, I'm sorry.
Rohini ma'am, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
हाँ,
Good evening,
What
ma'am.
is your question? Good evening.
मैम एक्चुअली मेरे हस्बैंड को 2 मंथ्स पहले कोविड डिटेक्ट हुआ था. उनका जो चेस्ट का सीटी स्कैन था उसका 1 आया था. जो स्कोर रहता है वो स्कोर 1 आया था.
अच्छा. कोलोस्कोप था।
ओनली वन। हाँ, सो उन्होंने घर पे ही ट्रीटमेंट किया आइसोलेशन में रह के।
हाँ
सो अभी उनका जो स्टैंडलिप और रोजोवास है वो 7 ईयर से चल रहा है टैबलेट फॉर ब्लड थिनर के लिए।
हाँ
सो अभी उनको 1 वीक से ना चेस्ट में थोड़ा सा ऐसा टाइटनेस लगता है, ऐसा थोड़ा सा जैसे फील नहीं होता है वहां पे कुछ कि मतलब प्रेस किया तो ऐसे लगता नहीं है कि मुझे लग रहा है वहां पे, फील नहीं होता है उनको कि वहां पे कुछ है, मतलब फील नहीं होता है जो टच करते हैं तो
सेंसेशन कम हो गया है।
सेंसेशन कम हो गया है। यस यस।
हाँ हाँ
सो मैम उसके लिए कुछ टैबलेट चेंज करनी पड़ेगी या कुछ और करने की जरूरत है चेकिंग?
फिर डॉक्टर को दिखाइए।
ओके मैम।
You have to show because he's a cardiac patient. He's on blood thinners. You need to follow up.
ओके मैम। ओके मैम।
Well,
थैंक यू मैम।
ma'am, the next question is from Mr. Vipul Zaveri. Mr. Vipul, are you there? Mr. Vipul Zaveri, can you unmute please and put
no.
on your question?
No, Mansi, I think so. Is not there, madam.
Okay, okay. Well, we have next is from Purva Hatsikar. Like, what can we eat if we have COVID?
What can you eat?
Yeah. What diet?
Okay. So, Purvi, you should eat a large variety of fresh and unprocessed food, जिससे आपको बहुत सारे vitamins, minerals, fiber मिल सकते हैं. Avoid sugar, fat and salt significantly. 3 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables दिन में लेना चाहिए. And you can take whole grains, oats, wheat, brown rice वगैरह लेना चाहिए. For snacks, instead of taking heavy snacks, try to stick to fresh fruits and vegetables. Take adequate amount of fluids and avoid saturated fats, जैसे like cheese, butter, ghee. You just should avoid them and avoid red meat. You can take, if you are a non-vegetarian, you can take fish and chicken and avoid bakery products. So that's about it all. And decrease salt intake because and is there COVID हुआ है क्या? Did she have COVID?
No, ma'am, she's not mentioned. Are you there, ma'am?
Okay, never mind.
Well,
Purva, madam, you can unmute yourself and ask.
So let me just say कि अगर COVID हो चुका है, so it is better to restrict the salt intake because of the swelling and in the tissues inside. So extra intake of salt also causes fluid retention, और उससे pressure भी बढ़ जाते हैं and there is swelling and all which comes up. So it is preferable to cut down on the salt. Okay. Yeah. Next question.
ma'am, we have one from Kavita Chopra. She says, I am on thyroid medication. Kavita, ma'am, are you there? Please, can you put up your question?
Yeah. Hi, Paula. Kavita here.
Hi, Kavita. हाँ, बोलिए.
Yeah, I'm on thyroid medication since last 6 months, detected last year. And I just want to know any type of precaution vis-a-vis comorbidity and, my weight gain has been excessive and was diagnosed with hypothyroid, and I'm on Thyronorm 25 at the moment. So any particular thing to look out for or as such in this situation?
Yeah. So basically, if you are on 25 milligrams of Thyronorm, so that's not, I assume your thyroid, this thing is not very high. That's the lowest sort of a dose. But all the said done with the weight gain and all, you need to be careful. Like as I repeatedly earlier said, it's a thyroid is also a lifestyle disease. So you need to have at least, get a lot of fresh and unprocessed food, do some physical activity, take your medications, and generally keep a positive frame of mind and follow your basic precautions, which we do for to prevent transmission of COVID. So the idea being that people with lifestyle diseases are always at a high risk because their immunity gets lowered down. So once
Okay.
immunity is lower, then your chance of getting other infections increase, no?
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to build up your immunity and ensure that you take proper precautions. That's all.
That's all. Okay.
That's all.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks, Paula. Yeah.
Welcome.
Well, we have one question from Mr. Rakesh Gupta. It is,
Anji.
what interval to take ivermectin and how much should be the dose?
See, as I said, ivermectin I will not give to anybody. If your doctor has given ivermectin, there has to be a specific reason for giving ivermectin. It is not to be given across the counter. There are certain indications for giving ivermectin. It's not a drug which you would just commonly give to anybody.
Okay. Well, Mr. Gupta, I hope the question is answered. Well, we have another doctor, Geeta Fernandez. Are you there? Dr. Geeta Fernandez?
Yeah, she is there. Madam, yeah, she is there.
Yes, madam. What is the question?
Well, her question, I'll just put it across. She has asked that is Covaxin safe for allergic asthma in 20-year-old person?
I'm sorry.
Is Covaxin safe for allergic asthma in 20-year-old person?
Covaxin, yeah, you can give. Allergic
She
asthma.
has also put another question that after 2 doses of Covishield, how safe is a comorbid person with uncontrolled diabetes and heart condition?
No, see, whatever is your vaccine you are taking, whether you are taking Covaxin or whether you are taking Covishield, the idea is the basic problem, whether it is asthma, diabetes, they all have to be under control. If those are not under control, then anyway flare-ups are going to occur. So also let me put it another way. So we give BCG to all children, right? So does it protect us from tuberculosis and do we not get tuberculosis? We do get, but the intensity of the infection decreases. So similarly with the COVID vaccine also, it's not that you're going to be completely safe from COVID. You may still get COVID, but the intensity of the disease process will be less. However, if all your other comorbidities, whether it is your asthma or whether it is your diabetes or heart disease are not under control, then flare-ups are going to occur. So primarily, all your lifestyle diseases have to be tightened up. That control has to be very tight. If that control is tight, then your immunity will get boosted up and your other infections will obviously become less.
Well,
Hello, this is Dr. Geeta Fernandez. Can you hear me now?
yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Paula. It is like enlightening session, and we got
Doctor.
lots of confusion and doubts cleared in your session. So it was beautiful, and thank you for answering my 2 questions. Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Because my
But
aunt.
Just let me tell you, see, whether you take Covaxin, Covishield, Sputnik, उससे कुछ फर्क नहीं होता है. In our country, we don't get a choice. You take whatever vaccine is given to you. It's very simple, okay? But the idea remains is कि whichever is the primary problem, that problem has to be treated and tightened up. Because if that problem is not treated, your basic infection and the thing is going to get flared up.
Yes, I understand.
So that part of the thing has to get tightened up. Whatever the disease process is, उसके साथ आप ये कीजिए, it is okay. All right.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, my aunt actually was admitted last 10 days before in hospital, and she died of heart failure. I want to ask because she was absolutely normal individual. She was 70-year-old, pretty active, no history of heart disease, and suddenly we went for vaccination the previous day. But she did not take the vaccine, but she was there for 5 hours with us. Okay, so next day she got heart attack and we got her admitted. Angioplasty was done immediately and she was fine after that. After 2 hours, doctor said she'll end up into heart failure. So within 4 to 5 hours, she died. She went into cardiac arrest and she died. Now my question is, because the second day itself we did this PT, this for COVID. Yeah, RT-PCR, sorry.
Right.
So it came negative, but as we always say that if we do it early, second day itself, it could be false positive, false negative, sorry. So it might be my question and my doubt is, it might be because of COVID. COVID, she might, suddenly got the heart failure or with no history of, and lung was totally collapsed. Suddenly in 1 day, 2 day, how come this happened? So probability
Age
is there.
also
What
a
is
factor,
your
no?
opinion?
Age,
Sorry?
age.
Age is
also a
70
factor,
or
no?
70. She
So,
was,
age is
yeah.
a factor, no? She's a senior citizen, and if she did have COVID, and then she went through procedure, so we
Right.
don't know, na. See, earlier when in the first peak time they were doing uh, what PMs. Now they don't do PMs. So I don't know. It's difficult to explain, but she could be having some comorbidity. Must have been there, no?
No. She was not absolutely healthy individual. She was taking blood pressure, hypertensive medicine, antihypertensive, but the hypertension was
She did
also.
have, no. She's 70. She's hypertensive,
No,
and
but
she
that is
was.
under control. That was under control. She was walking regularly, healthy individual. I completely understand that it is questionable. Because the COVID does not, we don't have any evidence to prove that she was COVID positive. But
Yeah,
my question, my doubt, I suspect that it might be one of the reason that COVID was positive and we did not detect it because it was the second day itself.
Yeah, could be.
What is your opinion on that? That I want.
Could
Your could
be.
be right.
Could be. It's very
Well, ma'am,
unfortunate, but could be.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
well, thank you, Dr. Geeta. We have another question from Mrs. Sheikh, Mrs. Zafar Sheikh. Can you, Mrs. Sheikh, are you there? Can you please आप जरा बता सकते हैं आपका question?
Good evening, ma'am.
हाँ, बोलिए.
My question is, if RT-PCR test is negative, it is COVID?
अगर RT-PCR नेगेटिव होते हैं, so it depends. Like अगर हम early stage of disease में करते हैं, like I was talking to Dr. Geeta, the viral load is low and it can be negative. अगर कभी-कभी sample properly नहीं लेते हैं, so it can come negative. Then there are issues in storage and transportation of samples also. And beach में there were a lot of cases, where there were tests were, pending. So तभी भी there was lots of confusion. And sometimes also now the new variants have come for the COVID virus. And these mutations which are there, they are occurring on the spike protein region. And the detection kits are meant to pick up only the spike protein. So many times they're not picking up the mutations. So, but if the person is symptomatic, अगर symptomatic है पर RT-PCR negative आया है, then you have to wait for 3 days and get tested again. पर वापस अगर negative आया है, then you get the markers done and the HRCT done. But again, get it done HRCT after 7 days. After 7 days, उसके पहले कुछ नहीं आएगा. Again, if you do it early on the 3rd day, 4th day, probably you will miss a lot of things. और in the interim period, अगर symptomatic वगैरह कुछ है, isolate कीजिए और protocols follow कीजिए.
Well, ma'am, we have another question from Vijayanti Karani. Mr. Vijayanti Karani, ma'am, are you there? Can you please unmute and ask your question?
Good evening, Dr. Paula.
Good evening.
Doctor, 1 month back I had COVID, and through RT-PCR showed negative. Twice I did in a week, it showed negative. Then I went for a HRCT.
हाँ जी.
because it was compulsory for admission for angioplasty. And it shows 10 on 25. And CORADS was 5.
हाँ.
So they told me postpone the angioplasty by 10 days. So I had a quarantine of 14 days. And thereafter I went for the operation. I got the angioplasty done. But now suddenly the blood level hemoglobin is coming down. What could be the reason? I tested it 2-3 times. It was 10, then 8. Now it is 6.
8.
Yeah.
Ma'am, it's 6 now, she's mentioned.
6. इतना कम कैसे होगा? So maybe you need to get yourself checked completely, because I cannot say why hemoglobin should fall down to 6 unless there is some internal bleeding at some point somewhere. Are you passing any black stools, dark stools?
Yeah, there is black stool and occult blood shows
Get yourself
positive.
checked. Then you need to get yourself checked, because there could be an intestinal bleed.
Ma'am, in this case, would you recommend her a complete body checkup?
Preferably.
Body checkup.
And stool examination to rule out occult blood.
There is occult blood positive trace. I have done the test
occult blood
already.
positive है, तो then there is bleeding. तो फिर
Is this a part of COVID or angioplasty?
So it could be, because it could be one of your that inflammatory syndrome where your intestine is affected.
Okay.
It could be a part of COVID, but whatever it is, if there is a bleeder and if it is still bleeding, then that needs to get attended to, ना? नहीं तो hemoglobin का तो drop होता रहेगा.
हाँ नहीं वो तो दिखा रही हूँ मैं डॉक्टर को. आप पूछना था ये कोविड की
You have
वजह
to
से.
take care of that, no?
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
get yourself treated.
Yeah.
At the earliest, I would say. Well, we have another question from Pooja Mehra.
Hanji.
Mehra, are you there, ma'am? Can you please unmute and ask your question? She has a question for her daughter.
Hanji.
Pooja Mehra?
What is the question?
Well, her question is like, she says like, my daughter had hemoglobin 9.5 and the doctor started with Fabiflu and Azi.
Hemoglobin 9.5, but was she COVID?
Yeah, she had COVID, and her hemoglobin went up to 9.5. Her hemoglobin was 9.5, but she was given Fabiflu, Azi, and all those medicines. So I'm just worried that this is going to create a problem in her hemoglobin again.
So the drop, what was the hemoglobin before?
It was 9 only, 9.5, and now also it is 9.5.
So then that means the base hemoglobin was only low, no? So she has to maybe take some hematinics. She has to take something to increase her hemoglobin and improve on her diet.
Okay, just diet problem now.
So she has to work and find out what is the cause of the low hemoglobin, no? Maybe deworm. So she needs to get herself checked up for that. If it is basically a iron deficiency anemia or a folate deficiency anemia, what is the cause of the low hemoglobin? And
Okay,
then
now that means we have to get it checked again and again. Like I checked it once after the COVID. That is quite.
So if her previous hemoglobin was also 9 and post-COVID is also 9, so that means that hemoglobin has been low pehle se. And if the hemoglobin is low, then you need to.
My worry is that all those medicines which she had taken.
Yeah, I understand
and
that.
all those.
I understand that. But what she has ingested, that we cannot do anything. No, it is already ingested. It is already taken. Right now, what you need to do is you need to tackle the hemoglobin. So you have to find out what is the cause of the low hemoglobin, because low hemoglobin के भी अलग-अलग कारण होते हैं. So once you identify, you go to your doctor, identify, and then get it treated. So I'm sure she will improve.
Okay, because she's very young, and my worry is like again this
Don't
black.
worry. Don't worry. She will improve. Don't
Yeah,
worry. You
Sure.
call me separately.
But yeah, I'll call you. I definitely.
Well, ma'am, we have Prerna madam here with a question. Prerna ma'am, can you please unmute and ask your question?
Hello, doctor.
Yes, hello.
I just wanted to know what is cytokine storm.
Yes, I was waiting for that कि कौन मुझे पूछने वाले हैं. Cytokine storm में से सब परेशान होते थे. So this is basically a severe immune reaction. जब body में से too many cytokines are released into blood. So there is COVID diagnosis जब होते हैं ना, so there is a 5 or a 7 day period जिसमें multiple organs का effect होते हैं. And 80% of the people, they improve during this window period, and some people go into pneumonia and 2% succumb. Now, cytokines play an important role in the immune mechanism. So, body के जो immunity रहते हैं, उसमें cytokines एक चीज होते हैं, and they play an important role. But when a large amount of these cytokines release हो जाते हैं body के अंदर, it causes harm to the body. Okay, and that is what we call as a cytokine storm. So वो कभी इन्फेक्शन के वजह से हो सकते हैं और कुछ डिजीज प्रोसेस के वजह से हो सकते हैं, एंड कभी कभी ट्रीटमेंट जब रहते हैं, इम्यूनोथेरेपी ट्रीटमेंट जो रहते हैं उसके वजह से भी हो सकते हैं. इट इज नॉट जस्ट कोविड. और इसमें क्या होता है, पीपल हैव हाई फीवर एंड देयर इज सिवियर फटीग, नॉशिया, एंड इट कैन अफेक्ट ऑल ऑर्गन्स आल्सो एंड कैन बिकम लाइफ थ्रेटनिंग. So patients are generally admitted and treated. और अगर COVID patients में तो तभी that was a time when they were giving the plasma therapy and also the tocilizumab drugs which used to be given for the cytokine storm. Okay.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Well, ma'am, there is another person, Mr. Jitendra. Please unmute and ask your question to ma'am, please.
हेलो, गुड इवनिंग मैम. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मैम, माय अंकल इज कोविड पॉजिटिव एंड हैज हाई बीपी. विल बी रिक्वायर्ड टू बी एडमिटेड?
तो इफ इज हाई बीपी यानी कि इफ इज ऑन मेडिकेशन और उसका बीपी अंडर कंट्रोल है, एंड अगर ऑक्सीजन सैचुरेशन लेस देन 90 मोर देन 94 है, तो फिर ही कैन बी ट्रीटेड एट होम. अच्छा, ही इज कोविड, नो?
यस,
ही इज कोविड. So if his oxygen saturation is maintained and markers are normal, और अगर दवाई बराबर से लेते हैं और बीपी कंट्रोल पे है, तो फिर एडमिट होने की जरूरत नहीं है. पर अगर if his BP is very high, irregular ट्रीटमेंट ले रहे थे, और कभी अगर डिसोरिएंटेशन, हेडेक, स्वेलिंग ऑन द फीट वगैरह आ जाते हैं, ब्रेथलेसनेस है, ऑक्सीजन सैचुरेशन गिर जाते हैं, then of course he has to be treated. He has to get admitted.
Okay, thank you.
And what is the age?
49.
Okay, so he's okay then. He's not too old. Can be done at home.
Well, Haripriya has raised her hand. Can you please unmute and ask your question, please?
No, Haripriya has left, I think so, right away.
Okay.
He was there till now and he has left.
Okay. Well, we have another question from Mr. Prasad. He says, can after 2 vaccination we get COVID and will it be severe?
Pardon? After 2 vaccinations, can you get COVID?
Yes.
So it depends at what time. Many times post-vaccination, it is not really COVID. It is one of the adverse effects which mimics COVID. Okay, so I don't know what did he say what time frame or anything?
No, nothing is mentioned.
So even after 1 month tak you may get the adverse effects of the COVID. So and they mimic the COVID like, so you can get fever with breathlessness, but it is not COVID. It is the side effect of the COVID, adverse effect of the COVID vaccine. And later on also you may get COVID, but the intensity of the disease process will be less. So I think we've done a lot. Is there anything else?
Well, ma'am, one last question here, which we have is from Mr. Swaminath. Mr. Swaminath, can you please unmute and ask your question?
What was this question? Dr. Mansi, what was this question?
Yes, ma'am. Just coming up with it. Ma'am, he says.
Can you hear me, madam?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Mr. Swaminath.
Good evening, madam. Actually, I am 55 years old, and I am heart patient.
Okay.
Since 5 to 6 years, and before 2 months, I have COVID also. So in that case, can I join the Healthy Heart program?
So you had COVID about 2 months back, right?
Yes, madam.
Then you can join, because generally the symptoms and the inflammation, they last for a period of 2 months, about 8 weeks. So we don't, we allow patients to wait and recover. But yes, you can join the program. In fact, it will be very beneficial for you, because it will improve your heart function, lung function, in terms of breathing capacity, to improve your immunity, improve your stamina. And if you have any muscle and joint pains and all, they also decrease.
Okay, madam.
You can.
Okay, madam. Thanks a lot, madam.
Okay.
Well, ma'am, now coming to the end with the time constraint, I guess we'll end the session here. And on behalf of SMMS Trust and Faith Clinic, I thank all of you for spending your valuable time to attend this discussion here with us. And thank you, stay safe, and a good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you.